The lecture hall buzzed with the usual mix of excitement and nervous energy that preceded Professor Vextar's weekly mission briefings. Representatives from 12 different species filled the tiered seating, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic frequencies that the universal translators worked overtime to process. In the back corner, almost invisible among her more vibrant classmates, Sut Maya Chun, the human exchange student, had been at the Galactic Naval Academy for 3 months now, and in that time she had spoken exactly 17 words during class discussions. The other cadets had long since given up trying to engage her in conversation. "Primitive species," whispered Zexai, a towering Altarian whose crystalline skin refracted light in patterns that conveyed disdain. "Humans barely discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. What could she possibly contribute to advanced tactical studies?" His companion, a reptilian Vortak named Seth, flicked his forked tongue in agreement. "I heard she only got accepted because of some diversity initiative. The council wants to appear inclusive, even if it means lowering standards." Maya's enhanced hearing caught every word, but she remained motionless, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display at the front of the room. She had learned early in her tenure here that responding to such comments only made things worse. Better to let them think what they wanted. Professor Vextar, a distinguished member of the militant Kithara species, strode into the room. His forearms moved in precise coordination as he activated the room's advanced projection systems. The Kithara were known throughout the galaxy for their strategic brilliance, having never lost a major engagement in their 3,000-year military history. "Today's exercise will test your ability to adapt to unexpected scenarios," Vextar announced, his translator rendering his guttural language into smooth standard galactic. "You will be divided into teams of 4 and given command of a simulated fleet. Your objective is simple: retrieve a diplomatic envoy from a hostile system and escort them safely to neutral space." The room erupted in excited chatter as students began forming groups. Maya watched as her classmates naturally gravitated toward others of similar academic standing or social status. Within minutes, most teams had formed, leaving her sitting alone with 3 other students who appeared equally unwanted. Her teammates were Pip, a diminutive squeaker whose species was known more for their mathematical abilities than combat prowess; Nara, a young Zelanian whose overly cautious nature had earned her the nickname Safety First; and Corvus, a Draconian who had failed the previous 3 tactical simulations and was on academic probation. "Well," Corvus said, his scaled face contorting into what might have been a smile. "Looks like we're the reject squad." Nara's tentacles writhed anxiously. "Perhaps we should focus on a defensive strategy. Minimal risk, maximum survival probability." Pip's translator squeaked rapidly as he spoke. "Mathematical models suggest our success probability is approximately 12.7%. Assuming optimal conditions and no unexpected variables." Maya said nothing, but her mind was already working. She had been studying the mission parameters while her teammates introduced themselves, and she could see several potential approaches that the more confident teams would likely overlook. Professor Vextar assigned each team a simulation chamber, and Maya's group found themselves in Pod 7, a modest setup compared to the premium chambers assigned to the top-performing students. The room contained 4 command stations arranged around a central holographic display that would show their fleet and the surrounding space in real time. "All right," Corvus said, settling into the captain's chair. "I suppose I'll take command since nobody else seems eager for the responsibility." Maya moved to the tactical station without comment. Her fingers danced across the interface, familiarizing herself with the simulated ship systems. The setup was based on standard galactic fleet configurations, but she noticed several inefficiencies in the default tactical protocols. The mission briefing materialized above the central display. Their target was Ambassador Thane, a human diplomat who had been conducting secret negotiations with the reclusive Nexari species. His ship had been captured in the Kepler 442 system, which was currently occupied by Marauder forces. Intelligence suggested the Marauders were planning to execute the ambassador in 72 hours. The Kepler system has three main approaches, Nara observed, highlighting the navigation routes on the display. The direct path through the asteroid field, the longer route around the gas giant, or the stealth approach through the nebula. Nebula's too risky, Corvus decided. Ships could get separated and our communications would be compromised. We'll take the direct route and punch through their defenses. Maya's fingers hesitated over her console. The direct approach was exactly what the Marauders would expect from a rescue mission. They would have concentrated their forces along that route, turning it into a killing field. But she remained silent, watching as Corvus input the navigation commands. The simulation began, and their small fleet of 4 ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Immediately, proximity alarms began screaming as Marauder patrol vessels detected their presence. "Defensive positions!" Corvus shouted, but it was too late. The enemy had been waiting, and their trap was perfectly positioned. Enemy fire erupted from hidden positions within the asteroid field, catching their ships in a crossfire. "Shields at 60% and falling," Pip reported, his voice rising to an even higher pitch with stress. "Return fire. All weapons," Corvus commanded. Maya watched their tactical situation deteriorate rapidly. 2 of their escort ships were already heavily damaged, and they were still nowhere near the ambassador's location. At this rate, the mission would be over in minutes. Her hands moved across her console, but not to fire weapons. Instead, she began analyzing the enemy fire patterns, tracking the timing and intensity of each attack. There was something odd about the Marauder positioning, something that didn't match their usual tactical doctrine. "We need to retreat," Nara called out. "This approach isn't working." "No," Corvus insisted. "We can push through. Concentrate all fire on the lead Marauder vessel." Maya's analysis completed just as their 3rd escort ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The enemy ships weren't just randomly positioned, they were following a specific pattern, one designed to funnel attacking forces into predetermined kill zones. But that same pattern had a weakness. A gap that appeared every 43 seconds when the ships adjusted their positions to maintain optimal firing angles. She looked up from her console, finally breaking her silence. "I need 60 seconds at the tactical station and I can get us through." The command center fell silent. Even through the chaos of the battle, her teammates stared at her in surprise. It was the longest sentence any of them had ever heard her speak. Corvus hesitated, watching their last escort ship's shields collapse under enemy fire. They had perhaps 2 minutes before their own ship would be destroyed. "Do it," he said finally, stepping aside. Maya's hands flew across the tactical controls with inhuman precision. Maya's fingers moved across the tactical interface with a fluidity that seemed impossible for someone who had supposedly never excelled in combat simulations. She wasn't just adjusting weapon systems, she was completely reconfiguring their approach to the battle. "What are you doing?" Corvus demanded, watching as their ship's weapons powered down just as enemy fire intensified around them. "The Marauders aren't real," Maya said quietly, her eyes never leaving the display as she worked. "I mean, their ships are real in the simulation, but their tactics are wrong. Someone programmed them to fight like galactic fleet vessels, not actual Marauders." Pip's translator squeaked in confusion. "That's impossible. The Academy's simulations are renowned for their accuracy." Maya pulled up a secondary display showing the enemy movement patterns. "Marauders use swarm tactics. They sacrifice individual ships to overwhelm defenses. These ships are maintaining formation and protecting each other. That's galactic fleet doctrine." She executed a series of commands that made their remaining escort ship perform what appeared to be a catastrophic systems failure. The vessel went dark, tumbling through space as if its crew had lost all control. "You've killed our escort." Nara's tentacles writhed in panic. "No," Maya replied, bringing up the ship's actual status on a hidden display. "I've made it invisible. Watch." The Marauder ships ignored the apparently derelict vessel, focusing their fire on Maya's command ship. But Maya had anticipated this. She executed a precise micro-jump that placed their ship directly behind the largest enemy vessel, using its bulk as a shield while their destroyed escort ship powered up behind enemy lines. "Now," Maya whispered, and Pip watched in amazement as their escort ship unleashed a coordinated strike on the Marauder rearguard while Maya's ship attacked from the opposite direction. The enemy formation collapsed in seconds. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before were caught completely off guard by the humans' unorthodox tactics. "Impossible," Corvus breathed. "How did you know that would work?" "Because I've fought real marauders," Maya said simply, then seemed to realize what she had revealed. Her face went pale as she stepped back from the tactical station, before anyone could ask what she meant. New alerts filled the command center. They had cleared the first defensive line, but long-range sensors were detecting massive enemy reinforcements moving to intercept them. 12 enemy dreadnoughts, Nara reported, her voice barely above a whisper. Plus at least 30 escort vessels. They're positioning themselves between us and the ambassador's location. Professor Vextar's voice crackled through the communication system. "All teams, be advised. The simulation has been updated with additional enemy forces. Adapt your strategies accordingly." Maya returned to her station, but she could feel her teammates' eyes on her. The casual way she had dismantled the first enemy formation was not the work of a struggling student. Her movements had been too precise, too confident. She had fought like someone with real combat experience. "The ambassador is being held on Kepler Station," she said, trying to focus on the mission. "It's a converted asteroid mining platform in orbit around the fourth planet. Heavily defended, but old infrastructure." "How do you know the station's layout?" Corvus asked suspiciously. Maya hesitated. "I studied the mission briefing materials." But Pip was already pulling up the briefing documents on his console. "The briefing materials only mention the station's existence. There are no technical specifications or layout diagrams available." An uncomfortable silence fell over the command center. Maya realized she had made another mistake, revealed knowledge she wasn't supposed to have. She opened her mouth to explain, then closed it again, unsure how much she could reveal without compromising everything. "Look," she said finally, "I know things seem strange, but we need to focus on the mission. Those dreadnoughts will reach us in 18 minutes. We can't fight them directly. Then what do you suggest?" Nara asked. Maya studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The enemy had positioned their forces to cover all the obvious approach routes. But they were making the same mistake most military commanders made. They were thinking in two dimensions. "The gas giant," she said suddenly. "Kepler 442c, its magnetic field is incredibly strong. Strong enough to disrupt most sensor systems. The radiation will fry our electronics," Corvus pointed out. "Not if we modify our shielding harmonics to match the planet's magnetic frequency," Maya replied, already working on the calculations. "It's dangerous, but it would make us effectively invisible." Pip's console beeped as he ran the numbers. "The probability of successful shield modulation is only 37%. If we miscalculate, our ship will lose all power." 37% is better than 0%, Maya said. "Which is what we have if we try to fight those dreadnoughts." Corvus looked around at his teammates, weighing their options. They could retreat and fail the mission, or they could trust the strange human who had somehow known exactly how to defeat the first enemy formation. "Do it," he decided. Maya's hands flew across her console, implementing shield modifications that required knowledge of advanced engineering principles that weren't taught until fourth-year courses. She worked with the kind of confidence that came from experience, not theory. As their ship descended toward the gas giant's upper atmosphere, the radiation levels began climbing rapidly. Warning alarms filled the command center, but Maya ignored them, fine-tuning the shield harmonics with minute adjustments. "Maya," Nara said nervously, "our navigation systems are starting to fail." "That's normal," Maya replied, not looking up from her work. "The magnetic field interferes with most electronics, but it's also masking our presence from enemy sensors." "How do you know what's normal in this situation?" Corvus demanded. "Have you done this before?" Maya's hands stilled for a moment. She looked up at her teammates, seeing the suspicion and confusion in their faces. She had been careless, revealing too much of her knowledge and experience. But there was no going back now. "I can't explain everything right now," she said quietly. "But I promise you I know what I'm doing. Trust me for just a little longer." The ship shuddered as they entered the planet's magnetosphere. The main display flickered and distorted, showing only fragments of the space around them. But Maya seemed to know exactly where they were going, navigating by instruments that the others couldn't even read. "There," she said, pointing to a faint signal on her console. "The station's emergency beacon. The magnetic field is amplifying it, giving us a direct path." As they emerged from the gas giant's shadow, Kepler Station appeared before them, a massive, sprawling complex built into an asteroid nearly 10 kilometers across. Dozens of defensive platforms surrounded it, their weapons trained on the approaches. "The station's shields are down," Pip observed with surprise. That's unusual for a prisoner facility." Maya nodded grimly. "The Marauders don't waste energy on shields when they're planning to execute their prisoners. They're confident no rescue mission could reach this far." "So what's the plan?" Corvus asked. Maya was already working on her console, bringing up detailed schematics of the station that definitely hadn't been in the mission briefing. "We dock at Maintenance Bay 7. It's on the far side of the asteroid, away from the main defense grid. From there, it's a 3-minute walk to the detention level." "And how exactly do you know all this?" Nara demanded. Maya looked at her teammates, knowing that her next words would change everything. "Because I helped design the security protocols for stations like this one. Before I came to the Academy, I worked for Galactic Intelligence." The silence in the command center was deafening. Maya's teammates stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief. Even the simulation seemed to pause, as if the universe itself was processing her revelation. "Galactic Intelligence?" Pip's translator squeaked the words in a pitch so high it was almost inaudible. "That's impossible," Corvus said flatly. "Humans have only been in the Galactic Council for 50 years. No human has ever been accepted into intelligence." Maya's hands continued working on her console, but her shoulders had tensed. "The first human was accepted 18 months ago. That was me." Nara's tentacles writhed with nervous energy. "But you're just a student. You failed half your tactical assessments." "I failed them on purpose," Maya admitted quietly. "My cover requires me to appear academically average. Drawing attention would compromise my mission." The ship's proximity alarms chimed as they approached the station's docking bay. Maya guided their vessel through a complex series of maneuvers that avoided the automated defense sensors, her movements precise and confident. "What mission?" Corvus demanded. "What aren't you telling us?" Maya hesitated, knowing that revealing more would violate every protocol she had been trained to follow. But the simulation was more than just an academic exercise. It was a test of her abilities, and her teammates deserved to understand what they were walking into. 3 weeks ago, Ambassador Thane received intelligence about a planned Marauder offensive. She began, still not looking away from her controls. "Not just raids, a full-scale invasion of the outer colonies. The information came from a Nexari source. Someone high up in their government?" "The Nexari don't involve themselves in galactic politics," Nara pointed out. "They do when the Marauders threaten their territory," Maya replied. "The invasion plans include Nexari space. They want to establish a foothold before expanding into the inner systems." Their ship settled into the docking bay with barely a vibration. Maya had piloted them through the station's defenses as if she had done it 100 times before. "The ambassador was supposed to return with detailed invasion plans and timetables," she continued. "Without that information, the fleet can't position their forces effectively. Millions of civilians could die." Corvus was studying her with new eyes. "And you knew all this because?" "Because I was supposed to be on that ship with him," Maya said simply. "The ambassador's mission was a joint operation between diplomatic corps and intelligence. I was the backup extraction plan if something went wrong." The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud that echoed through the ship. External atmosphere readings showed the bay was pressurized and safe for the standard oxygen-nitrogen mix that most species could breathe. So this isn't just a simulation for you, Pip realized. This is training for a real mission. Maya finally looked up from her console, meeting her teammate's eyes for the first time since her revelation. Professor Vexstar doesn't know. The Academy thinks I'm here as part of the cultural exchange program. Only 3 people in the galaxy know my real purpose. And now us, Nara said quietly. And now you, Maya agreed. Which means I'm trusting you with information that could get us all killed if it falls into the wrong hands. Corvus stood up from his captain's chair, his scaled face unreadable. What do you need us to do? The question surprised Maya. She had expected more arguments, more demands for explanations. Instead, her teammates were looking at her with something approaching respect. The station's security system has 3 layers, she began, bringing up a schematic on the main display. External sensors, internal motion detectors, and biometric locks on the detention cells. I can bypass the first 2, but the third requires physical access to the central security node. Where is that located? Pip asked, already running calculations on his console. Command level, Section 12. About 8 minutes from the docking bay if we move fast and don't encounter resistance. And if we do encounter resistance? Corvus asked. Maya's expression darkened. Then we fight. But these aren't simulated enemies the Marauders will shoot to kill. She moved to a storage locker and began, pulling out equipment that definitely hadn't been part of the standard simulation loadout. Advanced weapon systems, hacking devices, and personal shields that looked far more sophisticated than anything the Academy typically provided. How did you get military-grade equipment into a simulation pod? Nara wondered. I didn't, Maya replied, checking the charge on what appeared to be a plasma rifle. Intelligence has been monitoring all Academy simulations that involve rescue scenarios. When they detected this particular mission profile, they upgraded our equipment remotely. The implications of that statement sent chills through her teammates. If intelligence was monitoring Academy exercises, it meant Maya's presence here was part of something much larger than a simple exchange program. There's something else you should know, Maya continued, handing each of them a personal shield generator. This simulation isn't using standard Academy parameters. The enemy AI has been enhanced with real Marauder tactical data. What does that mean? Corvus asked, though his expression suggested he already suspected the answer. It means this is as close to a real combat situation as the Academy can create, Maya said grimly. The Marauders you'll face think and fight like the actual enemy. They'll use torture, hostages, and execution threats as psychological warfare. Pip's console chimed with an incoming message from the station. Maya quickly intercepted it before the communication could complete. Automated challenge, she explained. I've sent back our identification codes. But we only have about 10 minutes before they expect us to report to Station Command for processing. 10 minutes to find and extract the ambassador, Nara summarized. Actually, less than that, Maya corrected. We need to be off the station and back in hyperspace before their patrol ships return. I estimate 7 minutes maximum. She moved toward the ship's exit hatch, her weapon ready and her demeanor completely transformed. Gone was the quiet, uncertain student who had sat in the back of lecture halls for 3 months. In her place stood a professional intelligence operative, confident and deadly. One more thing, she said, pausing at the hatch. Everything you see from this point forward is classified at the highest levels. If anyone asks about today's simulation, our team failed the rescue and the ambassador died. Understood? Her teammates nodded, though Corvus couldn't help asking, what really happened to the ambassador? Is he actually missing? Maya's hand hesitated on the hatch controls. When she looked back at them, her expression was carefully neutral. Ambassador Thane died 6 days ago, she said quietly. The Marauders executed him when he refused to reveal his intelligence sources. This simulation is based on the actual mission we failed to complete in time. The weight of that revelation settled over the command center like a blanket. They weren't just running an exercise, they were reliving a tragedy, trying to find a way to succeed where the real world had failed. But if he's already dead, Pip began, then what's the point of this simulation? Maya opened the hatch, checking the corridor beyond for threats. Because in 3 weeks I'm going to attempt a similar mission to extract the ambassador's Nexari contact. And this time I can't afford to fail. The station's corridors were dimly lit, casting long shadows that seemed to move with their own malevolent purpose. Maya led her team through the maintenance sections with the confidence of someone who had studied every blueprint and security report available. Her teammates followed in silence, still processing the magnitude of what she had revealed. Motion sensors ahead, Maya whispered, raising her hand to halt the group. She pulled a small device from her belt and aimed it at a nearly invisible sensor cluster mounted in the ceiling. A brief pulse of light, and the sensors went dark. How many times have you done this? Corvus asked quietly. This specific scenario? Never, Maya replied, moving forward again. But I've infiltrated 17 similar facilities over the past year. The Marauders use a standard template for their converted stations. They reached an intersection where 3 corridors met. Maya checked her scanner, then pointed toward the left passage. Detention level is this way? Stay close and watch for pressure plates in the floor. As they moved deeper into the station, the signs of Marauder occupation became more apparent. Crude modifications to the original infrastructure, weapon scars on the walls, and the unmistakable smell of poor ventilation and unwashed bodies. This wasn't just a simulation. The environmental details were too accurate, too visceral. Maya, Nara whispered, how is this simulation so realistic? I can actually smell the station. Advanced sensory projection, Maya explained, though her tone suggested there was more to it. The Academy's new systems can replicate environmental conditions down to the molecular level. Pip's scanner beeped softly. I'm detecting life signs. 3 Marauders in the next section, 2 more further ahead. Maya nodded, unsurprised. Standard patrol pattern. They rotate every 40 minutes, but they're sloppy about timing. We have a window. She gestured for the others to wait, then moved forward alone with fluid grace that spoke of extensive combat training. Through her advanced hearing, her teammates could track her movement even when she disappeared from sight. There were soft sounds, a muffled impact, something heavy hitting the floor. Then silence. Maya reappeared 30 seconds later, signaling them forward. In the next corridor, they found 3 Marauder guards slumped unconscious against the walls. Non-lethal takedowns, she explained. Killing guards creates evidence. Unconscious ones might not be discovered for hours. You move like a ghost, Corvus observed with grudging admiration. Special operations training, Maya said simply. Humans have certain advantages in stealth situations. We're smaller and lighter than most species, and our hearing is exceptionally acute. They reached the detention level without further incident. The area was more heavily fortified than the rest of the station, with blast doors and automated defense turrets that tracked movement through the corridors. The turrets are motion-activated, Maya explained, studying the defensive setup, but they're calibrated for larger species. If I stay low and move slowly, they might not detect me. That's incredibly dangerous, Nara pointed out. So's letting the invasion fleet surprise the outer colonies, Maya replied. She was already moving, crawling along the floor with movements so smooth and controlled that she barely seemed to disturb the air. Around her, the turrets tracked back and forth, their sensors sweeping the corridor, but Maya passed beneath their detection threshold. Within minutes, she had reached the security station and begun working on the access controls. Her teammates watched in amazement as she bypassed multiple layers of security encryption. Her fingers moved across the interface with the kind of speed and precision that suggested deep familiarity with Marauder security protocols. How do you know their systems so well? Pip whispered into his communicator. I spent 3 months undercover on a Marauder vessel, Maya's voice crackled back. It's amazing what you can learn when the enemy thinks you're just a frightened prisoner. The detention cell locks disengaged with a series of soft clicks. Maya gestured for her team to move forward while she continued working on the security station. The ambassador should be in cell block 7, she called out. Large human male, about 50 years old. Probably injured. Corvus and Nara moved toward the indicated cell block while Pip remained with Maya, watching in fascination as she downloaded data from the security system. What are you looking for? He asked. Intelligence, Maya replied without elaboration. Her scanner beeped as the download completed. Guard rotation schedules, prisoner manifests, communication logs, anything that might help with the real mission. A shout echoed from the direction of the cell blocks, followed by the sound of weapons fire. Maya's head snapped up, her combat instincts immediately engaged. Contact! Corvus's voice came through their communicators. The ambassador's cell was booby-trapped. We've got marauder reinforcements incoming from both directions. Maya cursed in several languages, some of which weren't in the Universal Translator's database. Fall back to my position. I'll set up a defensive perimeter. She pulled what appeared to be a small sphere from her belt and threw it down the main corridor. The device expanded into a portable shield generator that created a barrier of crackling energy across the passage. That's military hardware, Pip observed. The Academy doesn't have access to equipment like that. The Academy doesn't need to fight real marauders, Maya replied grimly. She was setting up additional defensive positions with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. Corvus and Nara appeared at the far end of the corridor, supporting between them a figure that matched the ambassador's description. The man was conscious but clearly injured, and he moved with the careful precision of someone trying not to aggravate wounds. Ambassador Thane. Maya called out. The man looked up, and his expression changed from confusion to relief. Agent Chun? Thank God. I was beginning to think intelligence had written me off. The casual familiarity in his voice confirmed what Maya's teammates had begun to suspect. This wasn't just a simulation. Somehow they were participating in a real rescue mission. How is this possible? Nara whispered. Are we actually here? Quantum entanglement projection, Maya explained rapidly as she helped support the ambassador. The Academy's newest technology. Our consciousness is actually piloting remote bodies on a real station. You mean we could actually die? Pip's voice rose to its highest pitch yet. Only if the remote bodies are destroyed, Maya said. But that would leave us in permanent comas, so let's avoid that outcome. Weapons fire erupted from both ends of the corridor as marauder forces closed in. Maya's shield generator held, but it was already beginning to flicker under the sustained assault. We need an exit strategy, Corvus said. Checking his weapon's charge level, Maya was already working on her scanner, searching for alternatives. There's a maintenance shaft 20 meters behind us. It leads to an external airlock. An airlock? Nara asked. We don't have spacesuits. We don't need them, Maya replied with a grin that her teammates were beginning to recognize as dangerous. We're going to steal a marauder ship. The shield generator finally collapsed under the sustained enemy fire. Maya threw a smoke grenade that filled the corridor with thick, choking vapor, then led her team toward the maintenance shaft. You're insane, the ambassador said, but he was smiling. I love it when a plan is appropriately reckless. As they reached the shaft entrance, Maya paused to look back at her teammates. Last chance to back out. Once we go through that airlock, this becomes a real combat mission with real consequences. Corvus checked his weapon one final time. We've come this far. Pip's translator squeaked nervously, but he nodded agreement. Mathematical probability of survival is still better than abandoning the mission. Nara's tentacles had stopped writhing. For the outer colonies? Maya smiled, the first genuine smile her teammates had ever seen from her. Then let's go steal a ship. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for a single person, and the ambassador's injuries made their progress painfully slow. Behind them, the sounds of pursuing marauders grew closer as the enemy forces organized their search. They're using seeker drones, Maya observed, watching her scanner as small blips moved through the station's corridors. Automated hunters. They'll track our heat signatures through the ventilation system. How long do we have? Ambassador Thane asked, wincing as Corvus helped him through a particularly narrow section. Maybe 10 minutes before they pinpoint our location, Maya replied. She was working on her scanner again, mapping the station's external configuration. They're docking Bay 12. It's showing 3 vessels currently berthed. What kind of ships? Pip squeaked, his mathematical mind already calculating flight possibilities. Maya's expression grew grim. 2 cargo haulers and a Marauder assault cruiser. We can't steal an assault cruiser with 4 people, Nara pointed out. Those ships require a crew of 20 minimum. Not if you know the right shortcuts, Maya said cryptically. Marauder technology is based on captured and modified galactic fleet systems. They've added their own security protocols, but the underlying architecture is the same. They reached the end of the shaft, which terminated at an airlock designed for emergency maintenance access. Maya checked the external conditions. The station's artificial gravity extended this far. But they would be exposed to vacuum and radiation once they moved outside. Emergency suits are in the locker, she said, pointing to a storage compartment that her teammates would never have thought to check. They're basic, but they'll keep us alive for 30 minutes. As they struggled into the bulky suits, Ambassador Thane studied Maya with curious eyes. You're not what I expected from the intelligence reports, Agent Chen. What did you expect? Maya asked, helping Pip with his suit's life support connections. Someone older, more experienced. The mission briefings made you sound like a veteran operative with decades of experience. Maya paused in her preparations. I'm 22 years old. I've been working for intelligence for exactly 14 months. That's impossible, Corvus said. No one acquires your level of skills in 14 months. Humans learn fast when their survival depends on it, Maya replied. And when the galaxy's security is at stake? She activated the airlock, and they stepped out onto the station's external hull. The modified asteroid's surface was a maze of docking ports, sensor arrays, and weapon emplacements. In the distance, the gas giant they had used for cover dominated the view, its swirling atmospheric storms creating patterns of light and shadow. The assault cruiser is 200 meters that way, Maya said, pointing toward a sleek, predatory-looking vessel that was clearly designed for combat. It's the Ravager's Claw, flagship of the Marauder commander's personal fleet. You know the ship's name? Mara asked. I know its commander, Maya said quietly. Captain Vexhai. He's the one who killed the real Ambassador Thane. The weight of that statement settled over the group. They were about to steal the personal ship of the man responsible for the ambassador's death. It felt like more than just a tactical maneuver. It felt like justice. They made their way across the station's hull, using magnetic anchors to maintain their grip on the metal surface. Maya led them through a path that avoided the automated defense sensors, moving with the confidence of someone who had studied every detail of the station's external configuration. There, she whispered as they approached the assault cruiser's docking clamps. Service airlock? It'll be locked, but I can bypass the security. She pulled out a device that looked like a combination of electronic tools and began working on the airlock's control panel. Within minutes, the outer door cycled open, revealing an empty corridor beyond. No internal guards? Corvus asked suspiciously. Marauders don't expect anyone to be crazy enough to steal their flagship, Maya replied. Their security focuses on preventing people from leaving, not on stopping them from getting aboard. They moved through the ship's corridors. And Maya's teammates were struck by how different the vessel was from standard galactic fleet designs. Where fleet ships emphasized efficiency and comfort, the Marauder vessel was all angular surfaces and harsh lighting. Everything was designed to intimidate and dominate. Bridges this way, Maya said, leading them toward the ship's central command area. I need to access the navigation computer and download the invasion plans. The plans are here? Ambassador Thane asked with surprise. Captain Vexhai is the operations tactical coordinator, Maya explained. His ship contains the master copies of all invasion data. They reached the bridge, a circular chamber dominated by a massive command chair that could only belong to the ship's captain. Maya moved to the central console and began. working with the same fluid efficiency she had, displayed throughout their mission. Security protocols are more sophisticated than the station systems, she observed. But they're still based on modified fleet architecture. Her hands moved across the interface, bypassing layer after layer of encryption. Her teammates watched in amazement as restricted files began appearing on the display star charts. Fleet movements, timetables for coordinated attacks. Maya, Pip said quietly, how do you know Marauder security systems this well? Maya's hands stilled for a moment. When she looked up at her teammates, her expression was carefully neutral. Because I designed them, she said simply. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. Maya's teammates stared at her, trying to process what she had just revealed. That's impossible, Nara whispered. You're human. You work for Galactic Intelligence. I worked for the Marauders first, Maya said, returning to her work on the console. For 3 years, I was Captain Vexai's personal technology specialist. I helped him upgrade his fleet systems and security protocols. You were a traitor? Corvus's voice carried a note of betrayal. I was a prisoner, Maya corrected. Captured during a raid on the civilian transport when I was 19. The Marauders don't take prisoners for ransom, they take them for slave labor. I was useful because of my technical background, so they kept me alive. The invasion plans finished downloading, and Maya began copying additional files from the ship's database. Her movements remained steady and professional, but her teammates could see the tension in her shoulders. How did you escape? Ambassador Thane asked gently. I didn't, Maya replied. Intelligence found me. Agent Harrison, my handler, spent 8 months developing an extraction plan. When they finally got me out, they offered me a choice retirement with a new identity or active service with intelligence. Why did you choose active service? Pip asked. Maya's hands paused over the console. Because I know how the Marauders think. I know their weaknesses and their capabilities. And I know that unless someone stops them, they'll eventually consume every peaceful world in the galaxy. Alert klaxons suddenly began blaring throughout the ship. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in an ominous glow. They've discovered the security breach, Maya said, checking her scanner. We have maybe 5 minutes before they send security teams aboard. Can we actually fly this ship? Corvus asked. Maya's fingers flew across the navigation controls, bringing the vessel's systems online. It's designed for a crew of 20, but the automation can handle most functions. We just need to get clear of the station before they activate their tractor beams. The ship's engines came online with a deep rumble that they could feel through the deck plating. Maya's hands moved across the control systems with practiced ease, initiating departure sequences that should have required multiple crew members. Everyone strap in, she called out. This is going to be rough. As the Ravager's claw detached from the station and began accelerating toward open space, Maya allowed herself a small smile. For the first time since her capture 3 years ago, she was flying free in a ship that had once been her prison, but her satisfaction was short-lived. Long-range sensors were showing massive energy signatures throughout the system. The Marauder invasion fleet was arriving ahead of schedule. Maya, Ambassador Thane said quietly. Studying the sensor readings, we're not just escaping with intelligence data. We're about to witness the beginning of the largest military operation in Marauder history. Maya nodded grimly. Then we better make sure this information reaches the fleet in time to stop them. The Ravager's claw cleared the station's defensive perimeter, just as the first waves of the Marauder invasion fleet began dropping out of hyperspace. Maya's stolen ship was suddenly surrounded by hundreds of enemy vessels, from massive dreadnoughts to swift attack craft. We're in the middle of their formation, Nara observed, her tentacles rigid with fear. Which is exactly where we want to be, Maya replied calmly, adjusting their course to match the fleet's movement. As long as we maintain formation, they'll assume we're part of the invasion force. She was working on multiple console displays simultaneously, intercepting and mimicking the communication protocols being used by the fleet. Her fingers danced across interfaces with the kind of muscle memory that could only come from extensive practice. You're accessing their tactical network, Pip realized, watching the data streams on his scanner. Fleet coordination requires constant communication between ships, Maya explained. Position reports, target assignments, synchronized jump coordinates. If I can tap into their network, I can see their entire battle plan. Ambassador Thane was studying the sensor readings with growing alarm. Maya, this fleet is larger than our intelligence estimates suggested. There are at least 300 combat vessels here. 427, Maya corrected, reading from the tactical display. Plus support vessels and troop transports. This isn't just an invasion, it's a complete conquest force. The magnitude of what they were witnessing began to sink in. This wasn't a raid or a limited offensive. The Marauders were preparing to seize and hold territory, on a scale that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy. What's their target? Corvus asked. Maya's expression grew dark as she decoded the fleet's navigation data. The Centauri sector. 12 inhabited systems, including 3 major industrial worlds. That's impossible, Nara said. Centauri is heavily defended. The fleet has 2 full battle groups stationed there. Had 2 battle groups, Maya corrected. According to these intercepts, the Marauders have been conducting sabotage operations for months. Communication networks compromised, supply lines disrupted, key personnel eliminated. She brought up a tactical display showing the Centauri sector's defensive positions. Red markers indicated where Marauder infiltration had successfully compromised fleet installations. They'd been preparing for this for over a year, Maya continued. By the time this fleet arrives, the defenders will be operating blind and without coordination. We have to warn them, Ambassador Thane said. With what? Maya asked. We're in the middle of an enemy fleet, flying a stolen ship that's probably been reported as hijacked. Any transmission we send will give away our position. So what do we do? Corvus asked. Maya was quiet for a moment, studying the tactical displays and running calculations on her scanner. When she looked up, her teammates saw something in her expression that they had never seen before: uncertainty. I need you to understand something, she said quietly. What I'm about to suggest goes beyond anything intelligence trained me for. If we do this, there's a good chance none of us will survive. What are you thinking? Pip asked, though his translator's pitch suggested he already suspected the answer wouldn't be pleasant. We destroy the fleet, Maya said simply. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ship's system seemed to pause, as if the universe itself was processing the audacity of her suggestion. 400 ships, Nara finally said. You want to destroy 400 Marauder ships with 1 stolen cruiser. Not all of them, Maya clarified. Just enough to disrupt their coordination and give the fleet time to respond. She pulled up a schematic of the Marauder fleet formation. They're traveling in a tight defensive configuration to protect against external threats. But that same formation makes them vulnerable to internal attack. Internal attack? Ambassador Thane asked. The fleet's command vessel is the dreadnought Shadowfall, positioned at the center of the formation, Maya explained. It's coordinating navigation, communications, and tactical operations for the entire fleet. And you want to attack it? Corvus said. I want to ram it, Maya corrected. At maximum acceleration, with our shields overloaded to create the largest possible explosion. Pip's scanner beeped as he ran the calculations. The explosion would destroy at least 50 ships in the immediate vicinity. The disruption to their formation would scatter the rest of the fleet, buying the fleet time to mount a proper defense, Maya concluded. It's not perfect, but it's better than letting them catch Centauri completely off guard. It's also suicide, Nara pointed out. Maybe, Maya acknowledged. But we're quantum linked to our real bodies back at the Academy. If these remote bodies are destroyed, we should return to normal consciousness. Should? Corvus emphasized. The technology is still experimental, Maya admitted. There's a small chance that traumatic termination of the link could cause permanent psychological damage. Ambassador Thane was studying her with new understanding. That's why you're really here, isn't it? This wasn't about rescue training or intelligence gathering. This was about testing whether you're willing to sacrifice yourself for the mission. Maya met his gaze steadily. Every intelligence operative faces that choice eventually. My handlers needed to know if I could make the hard decision when the time came. And can you? He asked. Maya looked around at her teammates, the 3 Academy. Students who had started this mission as academic failures and were now facing a choice that would determine the fate of millions of lives. I can, she said quietly. The question is whether you can. Corvus was the first to respond. If we don't do this, those colonies die. Mathematical probability of civilian casualties exceeds acceptable parameters, Pip added. His translator somehow conveying determination. Despite its mechanical nature, Nara's tentacles had stopped writhing entirely. For the outer colonies, she said simply. Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in months: genuine pride in her teammates. They had started this mission as strangers, bound together only by circumstance. Now they were something more. There's one more thing, Maya said. The data we've gathered, the fleet composition, the invasion plans, the sabotage operations, all of it needs to get back to intelligence. Even if our attack fails, this information could save the Centauri sector. How do we transmit it? Ambassador Thane asked. Maya was already working on her console, preparing a compressed data burst that would contain everything they had learned. Emergency beacon. It'll broadcast on all galactic fleet frequencies simultaneously. The transmission will give away our position, but by then it won't matter. She looked around the bridge one final time, at her teammates who had become something more than classmates. At the ambassador who represented everything they were fighting to protect. Are we ready? She asked. Send the transmission, Corvus said. Maya activated the beacon, and the Ravager's Claw began broadcasting their intelligence data across the galaxy. Within seconds, proximity alarms began screaming as the Marauder fleet detected their treachery. Here they come, Maya said. Watching as dozens of enemy ships broke formation to intercept them, she pushed the engines to maximum power and pointed their stolen ship directly at the massive dreadnought at the heart of the enemy formation. The shadowfall grew larger on their display, its weapon systems already turning to track their approach. Impact in 90 seconds, Pip reported. Maya settled back in the pilot's chair, her hands steady on the controls. It's been an honor serving with you. As enemy fire began erupting around them and the massive enemy dreadnought filled their entire field of view, Maya Chun, former prisoner intelligence operative, an Academy student, smiled one final time. The Academy's medical bay buzzed with activity as 4 simulation pods simultaneously signaled emergency disconnection. Maya Chun was the first to regain consciousness, her eyes snapping open with the sharp awareness of someone accustomed to waking up in dangerous situations. Status report, she said immediately, sitting up despite the protests of medical technicians trying to check her vital signs. All subjects have successfully returned to baseline consciousness, reported Dr. Yextai. Insectoid Hiver, whose multiple eyes could monitor all 4 students simultaneously. No apparent psychological trauma from the quantum link termination? Maya looked around the medical bay, finding her 3 teammates in various states of awakening. Corvus was already sitting up and demanding to know what had happened. Pip was running rapid calculations on a handheld device that someone had given him. Nara's tentacles were writhing with nervous energy as she tried to process their experience. Did it work? Corvus asked immediately. Did our transmission get through? Dr. Yextai's mandibles clicked in what might have been confusion. What transmission? Your simulation ended when your remote bodies were destroyed in a collision with an enemy vessel? Quite dramatic, actually. Maya and her teammates exchanged glances. They remembered the final moments clearly, the desperate ram attack on the Marauder dreadnought, the explosion that had consumed both their ship and their target. But according to the medical team, it had all been just a simulation. Doctor, Maya said carefully, how long were we connected to the simulation? Approximately 4 hours, came the reply. Longer than usual, but well within safe parameters for quantum consciousness projection. 4 hours. Maya's mind raced with the implications. If the simulation had been real, if they had actually been operating remote bodies on a genuine marauder station, then the mission they had just completed could have real consequences in the physical universe. Where is Professor Vextar? She asked. The professor was called away during your simulation, Dr. Yixtai replied. Some sort of emergency briefing with Academy leadership. Maya swung her legs over the side of her medical bed, ignoring the protests of the monitoring equipment. Her teammates were doing the same, all of them sensing that something significant had happened. We need to report to the professor immediately, she said. I'm afraid that won't be possible, came a new voice from the medical bay. Entrance. Maya turned to see Agent Harrison walking toward them, her intelligence handler. A tall human woman with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. Behind her were 3 other figures in the distinctive dark uniforms of Galactic Intelligence. Agent Harrison, Maya said, her voice carefully neutral. I wasn't expecting you. I imagine you weren't, Harrison replied with a slight smile. Given that you just completed an unauthorized intelligence operation using Academy resources. The medical bay fell silent. Dr. Yextai and the other medical staff suddenly found pressing reasons to be elsewhere, leaving Maya and her teammates alone with the intelligence operatives. The simulation wasn't simulated, Corvus said. It wasn't a question. The quantum consciousness projection technology is real, Harrison confirmed. Your minds were operating actual remote bodies stationed on a genuine Marauder facility. The mission you just completed saved approximately 40 million civilian lives. Pip's device beeped as he finished his calculations. Our transmission reached Galactic Fleet Command 43 minutes ago. Emergency response fleets are already being deployed to reinforce the Centauri sector. And the Marauder invasion fleet? Nara asked. Harrison's smile widened, scattered and leaderless. The destruction of their command vessel created exactly the chaos Agent Chun predicted. It will take them months to reorganize, by which time fleet defenses will be in position. Maya felt a complex mix of emotions, relief that their sacrifice had meant something, pride in her teammates' courage, and growing concern about the implications of what they had just learned. The Academy doesn't know, does it? She asked. They think we were just running a particularly challenging simulation. Professor Vextar is being briefed as we speak, Harrison replied. The Academy leadership will need to decide how much the faculty should know about our quantum projection capabilities. What about us? Corvus demanded. Are we going to be mind-wiped? Relocated? What's the standard procedure for civilian students who accidentally stumble into classified operations? Harrison looked at each of them in turn, her expression thoughtful. That depends on what you want to do with the experience you've gained. Maya understood immediately. You're recruiting them. I'm offering them a choice, Harrison corrected. The same choice I offered you 14 months ago? They've proven themselves capable of handling high-stress operations and making difficult decisions under pressure. What kind of choice? Pip asked, though his translator's pitch suggested he already suspected the answer. Complete your Academy education and return to your homeworlds with modified memories of today's events, Harrison said. Or transfer to the intelligence training program and learn how to use your new skills in service to galactic security. The silence that followed was filled with weight. Maya watched her teammates as they processed the decision, understanding better than anyone what they were being asked to consider. Intelligence work meant constant danger, moral ambiguity, and the kind of isolation that came from keeping deadly secrets. What do you think, Maya? Nara asked quietly. Maya considered her answer carefully. 3 months ago, these 3 students had been academic failures, the rejects that no one wanted on their team. Today, they had helped save 40 million lives. I think, she said slowly, that the galaxy needs people who are willing to make hard choices when everything is at stake. But it's not a decision to make lightly. How long do we have to decide? Corvus asked. 72 hours, Harrison replied. After that, the memory modification becomes necessary for security purposes. Agent Harrison and her team prepared to leave, but she paused at Maya's bedside. Good work today, Agent Chun. Your performance evaluation will reflect the successful completion of your field assessment. Field assessment? Maya asked. Did you think we would send you on actual operations without testing your decision-making under pressure? Harrison asked with amusement. Today's mission was designed to evaluate whether you could function effectively with an impromptu team and make the ultimate sacrifice when necessary. And my teammates? Exceeded all expectations, Harrison said simply. The psychological profiles we've compiled on them over the past few months suggested potential, but today they proved they have what it takes. As the intelligence operatives left, Maya found herself alone with her 3 former teammates. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft hum of monitoring equipment. So, Corvus said finally, what do we do now? Now we go back to our quarters and pretend this was just another simulation, Maya replied. We study for our exams, attend our classes, and act like normal academy students, while secretly processing the fact that we just saved 40 million lives. Pip added. Pretty much, Naya confirmed. Nara's tentacles had finally stopped writhing. Maya, whatever we decide about Agent Harrison's offer, I want you to know that it was an honor serving with you today. The honor was mine, Maya replied sincerely. All of you showed courage that I've seen in very few professional operatives. As they prepared to leave the medical bay, Corvus turned back to Maya one final time. What are you going to do? Continue with intelligence or return to being a regular student? Maya considered the question. She had spent 14 months learning to be an operative, 3 months pretending to be a struggling student, and 4 hours discovering who she really was when everything was on the line. I'm going to keep serving, she said quietly. The galaxy is full of threats that most people never hear about. Someone needs to stand in the shadows and face them. Then you won't be standing alone, Corvus said simply. As Maya Chun walked out of the Academy medical bay. She was no longer the silent student who sat in the back of lecture halls. She was an intelligence operative who had proven herself under fire, surrounded by teammates who had become something more than friends. 3 days later, Professor Vexstar would find 4 transfer requests on his desk, all requesting immediate placement in the Advanced Strategic Studies program. He would approve them without question, never knowing that he was authorizing the creation of one of the most effective intelligence teams in galactic history, but that was a story for another day. For now, Maya Chun was content to walk the halls of the Academy as just another student, carrying secrets that would protect billions of lives and friendships that had been forged in the crucible of shared sacrifice. The silent student had found her voice, and the galaxy was safer for it.